Phone, can I speak like this? You can. Okay? Okay, let's start. Andreas and me will present you this. 4 facts about Ray, 4 insights about participation, and how it is implemented in Erasmus Plus Youth in Action, 4 insights on capacity building and competence development in youth work, and then 4 questions to discuss. 4 facts about Ray. What you all know, because most of you at least are part of it, is the Ray project called Ray Monitoring. This is surveys we do in 26 languages every other year at this point, with lots of thousands of participants and project leaders, where we try to explore, or where we explore what people think the project participation has changed for them, how it has affected them, and how the program is implemented through the national agencies, through the project leaders, through the beneficiaries. What you see here is impressive. Over the last 10 years, so starting from 2009 to 2017, we have received responses from 65,000 participants and 17,000 project leaders. The last cycle now, that only was closed now, is not included in these figures, but it brings it up another couple of 15,000 each. Okay, I'm not talking more about this, but this is what we have been doing all the time, looking at how also the program evolves and develops. In 2014, though, there were 2 special thematic areas that the Ray Network decided to explore further through research. One of the 2 areas is what we refer to as capacity building and competence development of youth workers through Erasmus Plus Youth in Action, short acronym being Ray CAP, where we take a different approach. We go deeper into this issue by following a group of project youth workers who participated either in youth work mobility or in TCA activities, and we interview them over a period of time. We follow them over a period of time with interviews. So 1 interview before the activity they take part in, then 1 interview 2-3 months after the activity they took part in, to find out what has changed for them in terms of their competences. What kind of competences did they develop, youth work competences did they develop through participating in this activity, this Erasmus Plus Youth in Action activity. And then 1 interview 1 year after the activity, to see also how they were able to implement or transfer what they have learned in their youth in action activity into their youth work practice in their organizations. Altogether, there were more than 400 interviews performed. Actually, 122 youth workers, youth leaders were interviewed 3 times. And now it's the time actually that we close this cycle of the research project and come out with a final report, and Andreas will be reporting the first outcomes of this project. The other thematic field is participation and citizenship, being one of the core objectives of the program. How does the program actually contribute to participation and citizenship with participants of Youth in Action projects? We do this also following a group of people over a period of time, in this case over 3 years, to see also what are the effects 3 years later that we can observe. We do this in 2 ways. On one side also with interviews before the activity take part in, an interview 1 year after the activity they took part in, and a final interview 3 years after the activity will be done this autumn in 2018. So a final report can only come out in 2019, but we have interim results here. The other way we do this is through surveys, online surveys, where we ask the participants again before the activity, 3 months after, 1 year after, and 3 years after. And in principle, we ask them the same questions about what they know, what their skills are, what the attitudes and values are which are related to participation and citizenship, and also what they do in terms of participation and active citizenship. And then we compare these answers to these same questions that we ask again and again over time and see how that changes. Actually, both fields of thematic fields, so competence development and capacity building and long-term effects, are also explored through the monitoring surveys, where we ask them about what did you learn with respect to participation and citizenship, and what did you actually further develop in terms of youth work competences. We do that. How has that also affected the organizations? We do that in the monitoring, but this is a different approach on the longitudinal level, so it's a different research approach. And the two complement each other, and we can find out that actually the results correlate in a certain way. Okay, this is the impressive figures. This does not include the final round we just had in the last 2 months. 4 insights on participation. So what are the outcomes of this project on participation, the effects, long-term effects of Erasmus Plus on participation and citizenship? One thing we found out, that the concepts of participation and citizenship that are in the documents, and we also write, we want to foster that, are very unclear and not comprehensible very often to participants, and also not to those project leaders who organize the projects. It's very abstract. And what is participation is a very fuzzy concept to most of them. And one of the conclusions, we said it is important to translate or transfer these concepts into a comprehensible language that everybody understands. Oh, this is participation and citizenship, which we actually did by doing the questionnaires. We translated the little small tiny bits of what it means. What is participation? What is citizenship in principle terms? Okay, so we can look at that. And this is one of the things we have to become better in explaining to beneficiaries and to project leaders, project organizers, project team members, trainers and all that. What is it actually? Second insight, youth in action projects have a large scope of themes they pursue, which are within kind of the scope of the program. And we always think there are certain projects which are participation and citizenship projects and others are others. This is true, but it is also not true. In a certain way, in each project, there can be participation and citizenship. It can be fostered in each project. Not as an explicit topic or theme of the project, but most of the projects that we deal with are somehow linked to society. They are somehow linked also to how we can participate or get engaged in society, maybe on completely different topics. So the concept, there are participation projects and there are other projects we have to overcome. We have to create in all the projects, where is the link between the theme and the topic that we are discussing in the project or we're dealing with in the project? How can we link this in some way to participation and citizenship? And so make each project in some way also a participation project. The third insight is that we might be very good in project methodology in the youth field, in promoting meeting and interaction between young people, also dealing with the intercultural dimension, which, by the way, I think is also a citizenship dimension, and kind of fostering this international dimension of projects. Where obviously we need further development is how can we foster participation and citizenship through projects. This is not an easy task, okay? And this is a very complex thing. It has to do with citizenship education, but at a very practical level, in non-formal education terms, in informal learning. So what we find out, for example, really what is very important for young people to develop participation and citizenship competences is peer learning. So how can we foster the peer learning, and how can we better establish spaces for informal learning, spaces for reflection which actually lead to participation and citizenship competence and practice. We found out in the interviews very often that participants thought they didn't learn anything about participation and citizenship. And then when we talked to them and we asked them questions about what do they do, what do you do now in your everyday life, it turned out, yes, it had an effect, but they were not aware of it. And only the interview made them aware and reflect about what they had experienced and what they had learned. And obviously, we are very much, this is just one of the examples, missing out on this reflection element. We're also missing out very often on following up to the activities. A lot of investment goes exactly in this meeting activity. And afterwards, very often there's nothing. And actually, the follow-up would actually make the experience and the learning sustainable. So this is something where we obviously have to develop also in how can we make use of the project environment for participation and citizenship practice or competence development. What is linked to the previous point is that, as I said, we also need to bring this to the level of youth work, the competences of project leaders, of youth workers who are actually running these activities. One thing is understanding participation and citizenship in practical terms. The other one is actually facilitating learning processes. And this requires, obviously, more development of youth workers, of their educational competences, of their citizenship and participation education competence. Of course, in a non-formal context and environment. This is where I pass on the microphone to Andreas.
This is going to be exciting. Do we have this beautiful moment on camera as well? Lovely. Lovely. 4 insights on capacity development. So this is a project where we have followed 122 participants of training and support activities over the course of a year. We interviewed them once before they went to an activity, and then twice after the activity, once 6 to 8 weeks after they returned, and then once a whole year after they had come back, trying to find out what have they learned, what have they managed to transfer from that training and support activity into their practice and into their organization, and how much of it also do they actually remember 1 year after a training and support activity. And there is a lot that we will say about that at the Triangular Summit on September 5th in Vienna, to which you're all invited. Today, we are just going to say 4 things. The first one is that there is a misbalance between personal and professional development in many of the training and support activities that we have looked at through RECAP. So people say generally personal development, they have grown without really being able to say in which way they have grown. So what we would maybe as professionals think, personal development is more values and attitudes, professional development is more skills and knowledge. But that's not really the case. It's a very fuzzy statement of, I have grown personally, I have developed personally, but when we start talking about skills, about knowledge, very little of that they can recall, they can remember, partly because it flows together with other training and support activities that they have attended, especially a year after. Then this one activity becomes part of a flow, but also because training and support activities in the program, in the perception of participants, work a lot on process and methodology and very little on knowledge and skills. And that's why there is a misbalance here, and that needs recalibration. Another insight and also another moment for recalibration is that almost all efforts go into the face-to-face time, the residential part of a training and support activity. And while there is a lot of preparation and follow-up, of course, ongoing by the organizers, very little of that happens with and for participants. And that has detrimental effects to how much participants feel welcome in advance of an activity, but also supported after they go back. And we know, of course, this is not only an issue of time and priority, but it's in particular an issue of resources in our heavily underfinanced sector. But that is an issue that needs looking into. The third one, there are more and more experienced and also thematically or methodologically specialized youth professionals in our field. That's part of the work that the program has done, right? Is promoting and pushing forward professionalization. What we see though is that they need different and also better training and support activities than what they currently have. The majority of activities that we do at the moment, they are very broadly addressed to the field. Sometimes it says this is more for newcomers, often it says everyone is welcome. Sometimes it says you need 2 years of experience, and then you still have very often the effect that we saw in the room here yesterday. You have from almost a greenhorn to almost a dinosaur, everyone in one room. And that leads to older and experienced colleagues often taking on the role of mentoring to younger and less experienced colleagues, but being able to draw less out of training and support activities for themselves. So what they are asking for, what they need is different kind of training and support activities where if you're a team leader or if you work with young people in conflict with the law, you actually have people who do the same thing and have the same dilemmas and have the same challenges, and you can talk with them and work through these challenges with them. And the fourth one is organizations seem to benefit too little from the capacity development of individuals in the framework of the program. And we have formulated that very carefully because so far we have looked at the side of participants of training and support activities. We are just doing the interviews with organizations, so looking at the flip side of that. But something we have already seen from the interviews with participants is they have a lot of trouble transferring what they learn and what they know and what they gain from training and support activities into their organizational context. Whether it's a network, a movement, an organization, doesn't really make so much of a difference. This is really hard for them. And so we are doing a round of interviews now with people from organizations, secretary generals, executive directors, board members, team leaders, to look at that from their side, and we'll have some more to say about that at the Triangular Summit. Because we do not have any time for discussion now, we have 4 questions here with us, which we have sneakily introduced into the open agenda, so that we have hopefully some time with those of you that are interested to discuss them then, because after I stop, we will be shut off very skillfully by Limonas and Jonathan. So one question is, what do these findings actually mean for TCA strategies at European and national level? We obviously have some ideas about that, but that is nothing that we feel we can decide, prescribe, or formulate on our own. We think that has to be a dialogue between research and the people who do these strategies. And so we have one open agenda session today where we would like to explore that with you. The second question, which actually came up yesterday at our Learning Island, is how could the program support organizations and organizational development and learning better? So if that is really a problem that participants of training and support activities have trouble transferring this into organizations, how can we change that? How can the program address that? And we have an open agenda session about that, at least on offer. Then a third one is, how can we help you better to communicate research findings to different audiences? We realize that a 350-page data report with tables might be very appealing to us and not very appealing to most other people on this planet. That's fine. So we actually have now introduced a part in our work that we call RayCom for research communication, and want to talk to you about what we can do to make that easier. And we are welcoming any crazy or flip ideas about what we could do here, and have a shorter open agenda session on that. And then the last one is, because we are beginning to think, of course, about the new program generation, and what we are curious to hear is what you're curious about. What else would you like to know? Would you like us to dig into young people with fewer opportunities and what the program really does to reach them and whether we reach them? Would you like to know more about inclusion? Would you like to know more about whatever interests you? So we have an open agenda session about that as well. And with that, I thank you very much.
2 minutes for questions.
2 minutes!
And 4 sessions on open agenda.
From the floor. Any questions from the floor?
See?
We didn't even need to.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Oh, here's one.
The titles of the open agenda proposals which you added to the board are a bit different from the 4 you were introducing now. It might be a bit difficult to link one to the other. When we come back to the then it would be good to
Yeah, yeah.
what is in
Yeah.
each of the office.
Yeah, we at least know which ones we mean by which, so yeah. We'll clarify that gladly, yeah. All right.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.